Welcome in, Heart Talkers, to another episode of Heart Talk. I'm your host, Laura Lawrence, and if you hang around this community, you know that we have everyday conversations with everyday people navigating both the hard and hope-filled seasons of life. And because I'm a mother and a mother of four and a former educator, I do find myself gravitating towards themes and topics that are relatable to families and parenting and being a mom. And today is one of those powerful podcasts, I think, that's going to really create a ripple effect within this community. I know when I met Sarah Adams, we didn't really meet. I've just been I've just been stalking you, following you. And really tuning into so much of the education and awareness that you advocate for youth online as a mental health advocate for youth, and the founder of a nonprofit organization that serves youth. This is a conversation that is just near and dear to my heart. So I am going to hand it over to you, Sarah, and just invite you to introduce yourself to the Heart Talk community.
I'm Sarah Adams. I am a child privacy and safety advocate online. My handle is mom.uncharted across basically all the social media platforms. And I talk about the topic of sharenting, which is how parents share their children online, as well as child exploitation as it relates to influencers and family vloggers. And I also offer tips and advice with how to keep our kids safe online.
Wow. Okay. So I'm curious, how did you get here? Like, what led you into this work and this advocacy topic?
So it was 2021, and I was at home with a child. I had the first week of lockdown in COVID, and I was struggling for like a creative outlet. And I couldn't help but notice what I was seeing online in the way that we were all sharing, because we were all spending a lot more time in these online spaces. And personal friends and family were sharing more, and I saw a really big uptick in influencers sharing more, lots of intimate and personal details about children, lots of regular content about children, and frankly, just like information and images that I didn't think I, as a stranger who followed an influencer online, should be privy to.
Mhm.
Um, it was kind of like a light bulb moment. I remember I had followed an influencer for a very long time on Instagram because back when I became a mom in 2017, I didn't think much of it. It felt normal. It felt normal to follow influencers, and it felt normal to engage with the content because I'd never been a mom before. Maybe I could get some tips, some tricks, have a sense of community. It all felt normal. And then in about 2021, this influencer started sharing a really personal health journey of one of her kids. And one day a light bulb went off, and it was just like, why do I know this? Why do I have access to this information? I'm a stranger. This is uncomfortable. And I just kind of snowballed from there. And finally, my husband said, you seem really passionate about this topic of privacy and advocating for children and how we share. Like, what are you going to do with it? And I'm like, I don't know. And then I downloaded TikTok, and I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to see what the rest of the world thinks about these topics. And I started sharing my opinion and my perspective and some information I found, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
So really interesting how you were led into it,
Yeah.
and I think that we all have, I mean, we all remember very clearly what it was like during the pandemic to be locked
Yes.
down. And, we're often viewing the same spaces online of advocacy for
Mhm.
mental health for youth, and how we're all spending so much time in digital spaces.
So much time in digital spaces. And that was another concern was, you would see those little story bubbles of like some of the influencers I would follow, and like it felt like they were literally following their children like all day. And that was their content from the minute their child woke up to what they had to breakfast, what they were wearing to school drop off, pick up, what they're doing on the weekend, their at home life. And it really felt like an invasion of privacy for these children who are just existing in this world, yet being used for public consumption.
Mhm.
As a mom, it just started to kind of give me an ick.
Mm.
And I immediately stopped following a lot of people I had followed for a long time.
Yeah, and then you also started like diving deeper into this world of child, exploitation.
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you've also interviewed and spoken to children or youth who were part of like an influencing campaign with their families. Is that correct?
I have personally, well, Cam Barrett is one of the individuals who has spoken out about having her life shared online. She wouldn't be considered like from a family blogger or an
Mm,
influencer family, but she was a child of an oversharer.
mm,
And it really directly affected her. And she was one of the first people, specifically on TikTok, to speak out about how her mother oversharing her life had greatly affected her mental health and her well-being. And so I have had contact with her, and I had the ability to meet her for a French documentary in the city of Chicago. And it was really great when, online friends become like real life physical
mhm, mhm.
friends.
And there are so many layers to this conversation and nuances. And I would imagine that as many supporters that you have, there's probably also the odd critic, or you probably get some, you probably get some pretty powerful feedback. Yeah? Talk to me
Yeah,
about that.
I would say the most powerful feedback came at the beginning. 2021, 2022, these topics weren't really being discussed online. And I came on pretty full force with an opinion that differed from what we were seeing and consuming online. And that was quite something.
Mhm,
I hadn't been prepared for so many people to not quote unquote get it. Um, but it kind of sometimes, the more I would approach with analogies and things like that, the more people would be like, wow, I never thought of it like that. Hold on, like this is making sense. But the online hate, we'll call it, was a lot at
mhm,
first. But I stood in my truth that children deserve the right to privacy. They deserve the right to informed consent, and they deserve the right to safety online. And slowly, as we progress year after year, it's become kind of popular.
mhm,
I would like to think that people are pulling away from sharing their children online and pulling away from influencers and family bloggers who exploit their kids. But at the beginning, I was quite polarizing, and I'd never been active on social media, really,
mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I'd never like overly shared or anything like that. So it was a new experience for me, but I pushed through.
Yeah, push through the discomfort. And I think that when I first started following you, there were absolutely some moments where I was like, do I agree with her fully? Why is this feeling like, why am I feeling defensive?
Yes.
And I think that also, I was just thinking about my own ways in which I was sharing my children, because I have friends who share quite a bit about their children. I have
Mhm.
friends who advocate on behalf of certain causes that are near and dear to their
Yeah.
heart, that their children are going through, that they're, inspirational journeys, and they've helped like thousands of people. So for me, the conversation's layered and nuanced. I think it does come back to just taking a second to think about the impact, the purpose, and the safety. And I've learned a lot about the safety part since my son experienced his own online harms.
Oh,
And
I'm sorry to hear that.
yeah, and that was, I mean, a teen. That's what I speak to now, that, the
Yeah.
online harms that are happening to kids in social media spaces and apps where there's no guardrails, and it's like the wild,
Yes.
wild west. But I wasn't really thinking about, you know, if I have thousands of people following me and many are strangers, and I'm posting my family's journey and they're seeing pictures of my kids. I know my teens came home one day, my older daughter, and she's older, she's 19 now, but
Yeah.
she had made a comment of like, well, so and so said they know you and they called me by my name, and they knew a lot about me, mom. And that just made me like go, you
A
know,
little light bulb moment, right?
a
A
little light,
little, a
a
little
little light.
spark.
Yeah. And so I think that of course, as moms, We can certainly, we're quick to get, um, I don't know if the defensive is the word, but we're all just, doing the best that we can that we know how.
Well, and I also think that sharing has been so normal for so long, like sharing our
Yeah.
kids online, like there's no guidebook to go to and see how this all turns out. Like we're living in this digital age that is advancing so fast. And like, Instagram really popped off in 2015, and a lot of us were already moms or becoming moms. And like it just became normal. And we
Mhm.
weren't really thinking about it, and people weren't really talking about it as openly and publicly as they are now. And I do want to go back to your comment about it being nuanced, because I also believe there is nuance, and I also
Mhm.
believe there's a lot of gray to this area. And I think one thing that people get wrong about me is that I'm trying to rid kids of the internet or
Yeah.
something like that. I recognize this isn't a black and white issue. I follow individuals who occasionally will have a family photo of their kids. I think there's a difference between individuals who are posting and turning their children into content. Like a account wouldn't be successful without primarily or solely featuring their child, and other people who occasionally give you like a little glimpse,
Mhm.
right? There's gray, there's nuance, but I'm not trying to rid kids of the internet. It's
Right.
2025. I don't really think that's possible or the way to broach these topics.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really stood out for me watching some of the content that you share is when we see the sharing of children in full-blown meltdowns or in maybe
Mm-hmm.
embarrassing moments or things that we
Yes.
we we use that are kind of like humorous or funny, but that are
Mm-hmm.
actually, moments of vulnerability for our children.
Yes.
That was a little bit of a light bulb moment for me.
I think a lot of, because I am, as we all are, we're somewhat in an echo chamber of our own algorithms and our own making, right? So I didn't realize how many people don't understand what some people are sharing online. Like to some people, it's shocking that a parent would share an image of a child in a bathtub or on the potty or in a moment of vulnerability having a meltdown or a poop explosion. Like these are all things that have been posted publicly to billions of people online. And for me, it seems like a gross violation of a child's right to privacy. And in a lot of capacity, their digital safety when it comes to certain images that parents are
Mhm.
choosing to share online. And with the advancements of AI, of course.
Yeah, that's something that I've learned a lot about in this last year of deep dive
Ooh,
into, oh, it is nauseating. And what
it
we think,
is.
what we might think is an innocent photo of our young daughter or son may be used for exactly the opposite purposes online by predators. Can you speak to
Yeah,
that?
and well, it's something that, parents are struggling with, and it's also what youth is struggling with,
Mhm.
the situations in regard to like the Nudify apps and things like that that adolescents and minors are dealing with. They're easy to download, and then next thing you know, in elementary school, junior high, high school, there's a photo or video of you going around on Snapchat that somebody has nudified. It's wild to think about what these children have dealt with and are dealing with. And then when it comes to parents sharing images of their children, if there is someone nefarious online who wants to take that image and alter it into something absolutely disgusting, that will be part of their digital footprint. That's
Yeah.
out there circulating somewhere. Telegram is one of the platforms that has some of the worst things on it that these people are sharing. So it is really important for us to be mindful of the images we share. And I recommend to all parents to, go private on social media. If you are going to share images and information of your children, you should be going private. And there's some images and information that just shouldn't be shared, period,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like children circulating in the bath or any form of nudity and stuff like that, that just doesn't need to be shared online.
Yeah. And like It's interesting when you spoke to your point at the beginning. It's like it's kind of been a slow burn in how we got here, where it's like we haven't really even thought like, is this appropriate? Is this acceptable? We all just have been kind of led to believe that the place to live is online, and that's where we share
Yes.
every aspect of our life so that everybody can, weigh in, tune in, follow.
Well, and I think it's one thing as adults, we have consented to be in these spaces. We recognize the risks involved with being online and having our images and our information out there and things like that. And children have not,
Mhm.
right? So to grow up and find out that you were a child that was overshared online and you have individuals of bad faith who are interested in you, following you, taking your photos, altering them, sharing them on Telegram, Reddit, whatever it may be. That child's going to grow up one day and potentially, probably find that. And that could have severe implications for the parent-child relationship as well as the child's mental health and well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that every time that we're pushed a little bit outside of our comfort zone, or every time we feel like a little bit triggered or a little bit, it's time where we lean in and just maybe sit with it for a bit and see like, what could be here. And I know after following you, I have changed some of my practices. And I also have friends who, have accounts where they're moms who are navigating, really complex medical journeys with their children and have influenced, or not influenced, but inspired other families to do so. It's been
Yep.
part of the healing journey. And so, like I said at the beginning, there's so many nuances or layers to it. And at the end of the day, it does come back to our own personal choice of what we wish to share and not to share. Yeah. So
Yes.
I imagine when I'm having these conversations, even as a mental health advocate and a mom with other moms, it's never from a place of judgment for me. It's just curiosity, in terms of also how I'm seeing it's affecting my own kids.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of I would like to think that most people aren't sharing information and images with malice intent for their children, right? I
Absolutely.
just think a lot of people are not as informed of the digital world and the digital dangers and how important privacy and consent is, right? Like, let's just take one example of informed consent. If you are a child and you grow up in a home where parents are always snapping photos of you without your approval, without being asked, and then displaying them online to billions of people without your approval and without being asked, that becomes the norm. That becomes the
Mhm.
norm, right? So when that child grows up, the potential is there to be like, well, I can take pictures without other people's consent. I can take videos without people's consent. I can take video of that girl crying in the hall of school and put it on Snapchat because, like, it was done to me my whole life,
Mm,
right? A lot of these things we have to look at as not face value, but there's a lot more depth to the conversation and things that maybe parents aren't thinking of, right? You're snapping a photo with your child without their consent, putting it on a public social media platform. It's deeper than just uploading a photo of your kid,
it-
right? And I think
yeah.
that is one thing I want to propel parents to think about is just going deeper with the topic. Like, would you want to be filmed during one of your meltdowns?
Mm,
If you have the big meltdown with your partner, or you have something really embarrassing happen to you in public, do you want that filmed and uploaded publicly to the internet by somebody who you love and trust?
mhm.
That's very violating. That's
Yeah.
very violating. So if we don't want that done to us, we should probably not do it to our kids.
Yeah, that's a powerful analogy. I know my son, my teenage son, he really doesn't like to be captured and shared online. And
Mhm.
I have, again, in my parenting growth journey, I now ask his permission. Is it okay
Love it.
if I can post this? Because yeah, one time he was like snapping his friends, and I'm in the background of my house coat. I'm like, I don't want that. He's like, well, yeah. How does it, how does it
There
feel?
we go. That's a great story to
Yep.
share as well, right? And I recognize, I regularly ask my children, hey, can I take a video? Can I take a photo? And you know what they say? Most of the time, no.
Hmm.
And sometimes it absolutely breaks my heart because I don't ask a
Yeah.
lot, right? It's a birthday or it's a special occasion and I want that photo. And they say no. But like if I said no, I would expect them to, respect my choice. So as hard as it is for a mom who just wants to capture that moment, I recognize that, the lesson I'm teaching them is deeper than just that one photo that I
Yeah.
want. I'm helping them learn about consent.
Yeah, and digital literacy too. Our kids are seeing all
Oh,
of these kids on YouTube, like being YouTube stars, and even my little
mhm.
boys, they'll be like, "Oh, we're gonna post a video," and actually, my 6-year-old's like, "Oh, I'm on TikTok." I'm like, "What? How are you on TikTok?" It's like, "Well, because my buddy and I was at his house, and those parents aren't as nearly as strict as I am with that, and they
Yeah,
posted this fun video, and then we had a conversation about what happens when we put our videos out there and who all sees
yeah.
it and the potential of harm. And I think that those are conversations we should start to be having more as a family about like digital
That,
literacy.
digital literacy and media literacy is so important, especially with the advancements of AI and
Mhm.
misinformation. And I also commend or request that parents normalize asking other parents about screen time. When I have play dates and drop offs, I say, we're a pretty low screen family. Do your kids have access to tablets or the internet? Will they be playing anything at your house? And have these conversations to normalize
Yeah.
these conversations. My children don't have a lot of screen time, but occasionally Mario Kart is something I grew up with. And we let them play and they have a play date. And I speak to the other mom, like we don't have, or the father, the caregiver. And I just say, we don't have a lot of screen time, but on a special play date, sometimes we play 20 or 30 minutes of Mario Kart. Is that okay with you?
Hmm.
Right? We as parents should be normalizing having these conversations. So, when a child is at someone else's house, they're not uploading videos to TikTok if you don't want them to be on
No.
TikTok, right?
And it's just become so normalized even for the kids. And I think we got to roll back here. We got a lot of backpedaling to do. And I have started to have some of those hard conversations. And I know I had one, and my husband was so uncomfortable because I'm like, I just have to say it. I just have to say, like, listen, this is how we approach having access to these certain apps or these games because my 6-year-old has seen some very frightening things on games and apps that keep him up at night.
Yes.
It keeps he has
Yes.
nightmares about it. And once you see
Well,
it, you can't
most
unsee it. Yeah.
and the things you can see on social media right now are extremely accessible and extremely graphic. We don't need to get political, but you can just see the images out of Palestine and children are on these apps and they're seeing this regularly and images out of Ukraine and things like that. Like there are some pretty horrific images and videos
Hmm.
circulating on social media. And it's oftentimes seeing it on someone else's device, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same with explicit content like pornography, right? Oftentimes it's children seeing it on someone else's
Yeah.
phone or
Yeah.
tablet, right? So it's important for us who are raising these, generation alpha kids and parents today to just normalize talking about technology and what's going on in each other's homes, what the kids have access to and things like that, because no one wants their kid going to someone else's house and, seeing porn for the first time.
Yeah.
It's just, again, I can't see any parent thinking that's awesome.
Yeah, right. And I think that how some of us are led into this conversation, like for me, it was very personal. It kind of found me. Once you're there, you can't really look away. And there's so many
Yeah.
different layers to the conversation. And I think what's really unique about you is that your voice and your platform takes it even another level,
Mm.
to the sometimes what we think is the more innocent things we might be sharing that really maybe aren't so innocent.
And I think it's also important for listeners to understand that, like, I stumbled upon this, right? I was always looking at it through a privacy and informed consent lens, yes, I knew there, is bad people online and bad things happen, but like I didn't know.
Hmm.
I didn't know how normalized it is. I didn't know about all these different corners of the internet. I didn't know all that AI can do. I didn't know that one of the biggest risks in sharenting is fraud and identity theft, right?
Oh, let's talk about
I,
that.
yeah. So one of the biggest things, Barclays Bank out of the UK did poll a few years ago and said that, I think, don't quote me on this, we'll have to look into this, but it was like 20 or 30% of identity fraud in 2030 will be due to parents oversharing online. Because a lot of the things that parents are sharing are full names, birthdays. Once that's out, it's pretty easy to find people's addresses and things like that. People opening credit cards and credit lines and your children's
Wow.
name. Um, that's something I didn't know until I started researching these topics.
Yeah, I wouldn't have even thought about that.
Exactly, right? So like the more I dive in, the more I see. Like I didn't know that there were parents online who were offering like subscriptions to exclusive content of their children. Like I didn't know that that was a thing that people could or would do, right?
Yeah, and that's really if you're thinking of a continuum and a spectrum, like that is, whew,
That's on one side. That's
that's
far
way
on
over there.
the other side.
But still
And
it's
sadly,
happening.
it's happening and it's not illegal. It is not illegal for parents to sell photos of their children in limited wear to strangers online. That's
And
crazy.
I don't know if it was through you or another account I was following where there was a particular young girl who had an account that was run by her parent, and
Mhm.
a large majority of the followers were middle-aged men.
100% when I started diving into this topic. Another topic that I kind of just stumbled upon a few years ago, and I'm really happy that some organizations like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, really like Four Corners Australia, really took that and like amplified the message globally. But there were accounts I would run into that had 90% male adult followings of girls, sometimes under the age of like 13.
Mhm.
Um, that's scary. And then those parents are selling photos and videos of their children to these adult males online. It's very disturbing.
Nauseating. Yeah.
It's almost unfathomable, except it's reality.
And what we know is that Meta actually has been knowingly um, sharing the accounts of minors with convicted pedophiles. Like
Yes,
that's a
that's on
fact.
record.
That's on the
Yep,
record. So
that's on record.
yeah, so here we have the oversharing, we have the exploitation, and then we have these social media companies that have like profits are top, and there is
Yeah, they
no
they they
safety
don't
regulation, no
they don't
protection.
care about our kids.
No.
When it comes down to it, they don't care about our kids. And I've always been hesitant about like government regulation because I think the big tech is backing the government and therefore they're kind of
Mhm.
getting what they want and it's all hand in hand. And that's why on my platform, I really focus on like changing societal norms, right?
Mhm.
I'm not against proper regulation, but I also don't know if it's possible with the money
Mhm.
these big tech companies and the lobbyists and being hand in hand with the government. I don't know if it is possible. So I would like to continue to advocate for parents and society to change. Let's all just stop sharing our kids so much online. Let's all rally and say no smartphones before 14, no social media until 16. Just like we normalized oversharing our kids the past 10 years, let's normalize delaying social media and smartphones for our kids. Let's normalize not putting our child's whole existence online the moment they exit the womb, things like this, right?
Mhm.
So that's what I'm focused on.
Yeah, and you can feel it. There's a shift happening. There's an awareness happening. In the last year, I've seen so much more talk about it, so much more brought to light after Anthony or Jonathan Haidt, the Anxious
Yes.
Generation, and now Netflix. I mean, everyone's going bananas over the
Over
adolescence
the adolescence.
documentary.
Yeah.
And I'm over here. I have so many friends sharing it with me. I'm like, what do you think I've been talking about the last year?
I know but again, back to like our echo chamber and our
Hmm.
algorithm that we're in this child safety thing to us, we're like, oh yeah, we knew about this. Like, hold on, you didn't know about this? Look how many parents did not know
Yeah,
about this,
yeah.
who didn't know this was a thing. So I think it's great and it's opened a lot of windows and it's opened up a lot of dialogue. And that's the important thing, right? Now parents have a sense of community that they can tackle the issue
Yeah.
together and have a better understanding of it. So I think that's great.
And I think that dialogue is important. Listen, we're not always going to agree on everything. And, the goal is to get to have conversations that are tough and hard. And sometimes we might be
Mhm.
on opposing sides, but to actually say, okay, thanks for sharing your perspective,
Yeah,
percolate with it.
yeah,
But like I too didn't know about any of it. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I speak in community presentations and parent presentations. Now I start with, listen, I was that parent
yes.
who didn't know.
Who
And
didn't
so
know?
I just didn't know. And so can we when before we wrap up, can I get you to just share like a couple of tips that you often will share with parents in terms of navigating this space and online?
Yeah. So I think the one I advocate for the most is for parents to go private on social media platforms. Don't share your images public, even private. Nothing is fully safe on these
Mhm.
things. People can get hacked. Things do happen. I have heard some terrible stories, but in general, sharing privately is a lot safer.
Mhm.
But that doesn't give you carte blanche over sharing images that are still just inappropriate for sharing online, think semi-nude and bath time photos, and also curate who's following you, right?
Mhm.
Is your account really private if you have 1,200 people on your private account? You want to know and trust the people that you are sharing your children with online. Um, Focusing on media literacy and digital literacy and teaching our children from early ages about social media and the dopamine hits that they
Mhm.
get and misinformation and the advancements in AI and open communication with our children is probably the number one thing we can do, because if our children see something online or something happens to them online, if they know that they can go to you and talk to you, we have a better chance at helping them. So talk to your kid about sextortion, talk to them
Mhm.
about the manosphere, talk to them about unrealistic beauty standards in the influencer world, and just keep talking to our kids. That's what they need right now. They need face-to-face conversations with their parents. And if we're not doing that, they're going to find it online.
Mhm.
And we don't know who they're going to find it with.
I couldn't agree
So
more with you. I couldn't agree
yeah,
more.
I
I,
would say just keep talking to our kids. And I'm an advocate for delaying smartphones and delaying social media. And a lot of parents will ask, well, what do you say? And I think, the tone is, hey, I've done a lot of research for your mental health and your well-being, and it's my duty to protect you and your development, specifically your brain development. And it's just not something that's beneficial to you
Mhm.
right now. And you might not get it and you might not agree with it. And it might be really hard for you. But one day you'll look back and you'll thank me.
Yeah.
And I will tell you the amount of comments I get from older teenagers or young adults in college who say, I felt left out, or, they didn't let me have social media. And now, wow, I'm so thankful.
Yeah.
I haven't heard a single parent say they wish they gave their kids social media sooner, nor have I had a young adult say, I wish I had social media sooner.
Right. So that speaks volumes.
Stand your ground, parents. If we can all stand our ground, then we can really create some change.
Absolutely. I know for my child, it was within a month. He was 14, a month that he had access to two social media platforms, Snapchat and TikTok, both of which were where the online harms happened and what they're
Yeah.
happening every single day to
Every
thousands of kids.
Every single day. Yeah. In parents, in regard to like self-harm, the CBC a couple weeks ago released a documentary you can watch on YouTube about the group 764, which is another, and there's just so much. There's just so much. But that's another topic that I don't think a lot of parents are aware of, just like the topics that adolescents touched
Mhm.
on. This is another one that kind of goes under the radar, but parents should be aware.
I appreciate this so much, Sarah, that I mean, you answered me when I reached out to you because I reached out to a
Oh,
lot of people.
of course. Us Canadian girls have to stick together.
I have utmost respect for the work that you do because advocacy work is not easy and you have to
Mm,
have pretty
yeah.
like big shoulders, I think.
Yeah,
So,
you have to have thick skin,
hmm.
and some of the stories can be really hard.
Yeah.
Seeing kids struggle in any capacity, or thinking about how eventually they will struggle with what's been shared online, like it's a good hard top.
Yeah, it is. I thank you for joining this community today. And listen, I would love to have you on in the future again. I think we could talk so much about this.
Oh, definitely. Well, I'm welcome. Just remember Pacific Standard Time.
Gosh, I'm gonna get that right one of these days. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks again, Sarah.